always seems harmless until the quiet starts working against you. Every little sound carries through the walls. Every shadow stretches longer than it should. And suddenly, the house that once felt safe feels far too big. For most people, it's just nerves. But sometimes, being home alone means you're not actually alone at all. I learned that the hard way when I was 13 years old. What started as an ordinary weekend turned into the single most terrifying night of my life. I grew up in rural Michigan, surrounded by farmland and woods. My family owned about 3 acres of property, with a big old house and a storage shed out back. It was isolated. Neighbors weren't close. And when it got dark, it stayed dark. One weekend, my parents went out for the night, leaving me in charge. I didn't think much of it. I was used to being left alone. That evening, I was in the living room, lost in a PlayStation game, when a sudden metallic bang shattered the silence. I froze, then darted to the windows, scanning the yard. At first, nothing seemed out of place until I looked toward the storage shed. Its heavy wooden door stood wide open. That door never opened on its own. Someone had pulled it. I grabbed the rifle from the closet and stepped outside, calling out into the night. No answer. When I reached the shed, I peeked inside, but it was too cluttered. Lawnmowers, boxes, tools, anyone could have been hiding. A chill ran down my spine. I shut the door and hurried back inside, locking every entrance. From the living room window, I kept watch on the shed. My heart raced as I replayed the sound in my mind. Someone had opened that door, but were they still out there or already inside? I called my dad, but he didn't answer. I left a voicemail, then tried to distract myself with the TV. For a few minutes, the house was silent again. Too silent. That's when I heard the creaking. Floorboards. Upstairs. I gripped the rifle and slowly crept up the stairs, every step heavier than the last. The hallway light revealed 5 closed doors. My parents' bedroom was at the far end. I dropped to my knees and peered under the crack of the door. My breath caught in my throat. 2 bare feet stood on the other side. I bolted downstairs, slammed the bathroom door shut, and locked it. My hands shook as I dialed my dad's number again. Still no answer. Finally, I called 911. I whispered into the phone, explaining everything to the dispatcher. She told me to stay quiet and hidden until officers arrived. That's when the footsteps came. Slow, deliberate, descending the staircase. They stopped outside the bathroom. I shouted back, forcing confidence I didn't feel. I told him I had a gun and was on the phone with the police. To make it clear, I put the operator on speaker so her voice echoed in the bathroom. The doorknob rattled. He tried to open it. When the lock held, silence followed. Then footsteps, fading away. A door slammed somewhere in the house. Moments later, flashing red and blue lights cut through the windows. The police searched every corner of the house and the shed, but the man was gone. Whoever he was, he'd slipped away into the night. They asked if I had somewhere else to stay, and I went to my uncle's. Later, I realized the chilling truth. It was my fault. When I ran to check the shed, I had left the back door unlocked. That's how he got inside. Even with a rifle in my hands, I had never felt so powerless. That night changed the way I looked at being home alone forever.
I was 18 when my parents left for their anniversary trip. My older sister had already moved out, so for a week, the house and the forest surrounding it were mine alone. Our home sat deep in the countryside of Vermont, hidden behind a dirt driveway that stretched nearly half a mile before meeting the road. The trees formed a wall around the property, and at night, their silhouettes swallowed the horizon. It was peaceful during the day, but as soon as the sun dipped behind the trees, the silence felt alive. One afternoon, while filling up my car at the only gas station in town, a black SUV pulled into the pump next to mine. The driver, a man with a goatee and baseball cap, gave me a friendly nod. He locked the nozzle into his tank and walked around to my side. "Excuse me," he said. "You know how to get to the interstate from here." I told him the directions. Straight, left at the second light, then follow the signs. Instead of typing it into his phone like any normal person, he scribbled it down in a small notepad. He asked if I was from the area. I said yes. He smiled faintly. "Nice name, by the way," he said when I told him my name was Lena. When I pulled out of the lot and turned toward home, I noticed his SUV behind me. At first, I brushed it off, until I turned into my long driveway and saw him drive past, heading the opposite direction, the wrong direction for the interstate. That small, harmless encounter stayed in my head for the rest of the night. That night, as I walked to my car to meet friends, I heard the faint crunch of footsteps behind the trees. Probably deer, I thought. The woods were full of them. When I came home hours later, the night air was heavy and still. As I stepped out of the car, I froze. From somewhere deep in the trees came a voice. "Lena." It wasn't playful. It wasn't friendly. It was calm, measured, like someone confirming that I was really there. I sprinted for the door and slammed it shut, locking every bolt. My heart was pounding so hard it drowned out every other sound. When I called my parents, they said it was probably a neighbor. But I knew my neighbors. None of them would stand in the dark woods calling my name. The next night, As I headed out again, it happened once more. Lena. I didn't hesitate. I ran back inside and called 911. 2 officers came, scanned the woods with flashlights, and told me to keep my phone nearby in case it happened again. The following night, I tried to ignore the unease. I left for my restaurant job in daylight and came home long after sunset. The driveway lights flickered on as I parked. Then I heard it. Footsteps again. Slow, deliberate. I froze at the top of the porch steps when a voice called out from the dark, "Don't call the cops on me again, cutie." Every drop of blood in my body went cold. I shouted something back, I don't even remember what, and ran inside. When the police arrived this time, they searched every inch of the property. Nothing. Not a single footprint. My parents told me to stay at my friend Mia's house until they returned. I packed my things that night. Before leaving, I peeked through the curtains. The woods were still. No movement. I stepped outside, locked the door, and hurried to my car. As I slid into the driver's seat and turned the key, a face appeared in the window beside me. A man, wearing a black face mask, gripping the handle, trying to yank the door open. He slammed his elbow into the glass as I screamed and floored the gas pedal. Gravel sprayed as I tore down the driveway, my tires bouncing over roots and rocks. In my rearview mirror, the man stood there, motionless at the edge of the trees, his mask shining faintly in my taillights. When I reached Mia's house, I was shaking so badly I could hardly dial the police. They arrived minutes later. One officer stayed with me, while others went to check my parents' house. No broken windows, no footprints, just silence. The next day, my parents came home early. I didn't stay there another night after that week. I moved into an apartment closer to town, surrounded by people and noise. But sometimes, when I'm driving alone at night, a black SUV in the rearview mirror makes my stomach twist, and I can still hear that calm, quiet voice from the woods. "Lena,